How do you space list items using margin or line height in CSS? Margins and line height are essential for spacing list items to enhance readability and visual appeal. First, let's start spacing list items using margins. Margins can be used to create space between list items by applying margin properties to the LI or list item elements. This method allows you to control the spacing outside each list item, effectively increasing or decreasing the gap between them. Let's take a look at an example of an unordered list with 3 list items. By default, HTML will not apply that much spacing between the list items. Here is what the example currently looks like rendered on the page. To apply some spacing to the bottom of each list item, you can use the margin bottom property like this. In this example, 40 pixels of margin will be applied to the bottom of each list item inside the unordered list. Here's what the example looks like rendered on the page. Another way to space out list items would be to use the line height property. The line height property adjusts the vertical spacing between lines of text within a single list item. While it primarily affects the spacing between lines of text within each item, it can also indirectly influence the overall spacing between list items if the items contain only a single line of text. If list items have multiple lines of text, the line height will affect the spacing between those lines, but it does not directly adjust the spacing between separate list items themselves. To control the spacing between individual list items, you would use margin or padding properties instead. Using the same unordered list from earlier, here's an example of applying line height to the list items. In this example, line height 2 sets the line height to be twice the font size, creating more vertical space within each item. Here's what the example looks like rendered on the page. How do the different list style properties work? In CSS, the list style property is used to control the appearance of lists on a web page. Whether you're working with ordered lists or unordered lists, the list style property allows you to customize how list items are displayed. The list style property is actually a shorthand for 3 other properties: list style type, list style position, and list style image. Each one plays a different role in defining the appearance of lists. The list style type property allows you to define appearance and list style image. List style type is actually a shorthand for 3 other properties: list style type, list style position, and list style image. Each one plays a different role in defining the appearance of lists. The list style type property allows you to define the type of bullet point or number used in a list. For unordered lists, you can choose from several bullet styles, such as discs, circles, or squares. For ordered lists, you can use different numbering systems, like decimal, Roman numerals, or even alphabetical characters. Here's an example of using list style type. In this example, the bullet points of the unordered list are changed to squares. The list style type property is the most commonly used of the 3, as it directly affects the appearance of the bullet or numbering style in your lists. The list style position property controls the position of the bullet or number in relation to the list item's content. There are two values you can use, inside and outside. When you use the value outside, the bullet or number appears outside the content, which is the default behavior. And when you use the value inside, the bullet or number appears inside the content, which may cause the text to wrap and align with the bullet or number. May cause the bullet, which is the default behavior. Number appears outside. When you use the value outside, the bullet or number appears outside the content, which is the default behavior. And when you use the value inside, the bullet or number appears inside the content, which may cause the text to wrap and align with the bullet or number. The list style position property can be useful when you want to control the alignment of the list content, especially in situations where you have multiple lines of text in a single list item. The list style image property allows you to use an image as the item in situations where you control the alignment of the list content, especially in situations where you have multiple lines of text in a single list item. The list style image property allows you to use an image as the bullet point for your list items. This can be useful for adding a unique visual style to your lists. Here's an example of using list style image. In this example, the bullet points are replaced by a custom freeCodeCamp logo, adding a personalized touch to the list. Here's what the example looks like rendered on the page. When using list style image, make sure the image you choose is small and appropriate for the design of your web page. If the image is too large or complex, it can make the list harder to read. You can combine the three properties, list style type, list style position, and list style image, into a single list style shorthand property. The order of the values in the shorthand doesn't matter, but all three can be specified together. Here's an example using the shorthand property. In this example, the list items use square bullets positioned inside the content with a custom image as the bullet. However, if the image is unavailable or not rendered, the square bullets will be used as a fallback. Here's what the example looks like rendered on the page. Why are default link styles important for usability on the web? Default link styles play a crucial role in enhancing usability and accessibility on the web. These styles, typically blue for unvisited links and purple for visited links, have become a standard that users have come to expect and rely on when navigating websites. The primary purpose of default link styles is to provide clear visual cues that help users distinguish between interactive and non-interactive elements on a web page. This distinction is fundamental to creating an intuitive and user-friendly browsing experience. Let's consider the basic default style for links. These styles serve several important functions. First, the blue color for unvisited links stands out against most background colors in text, making links easily identifiable. This contrast is crucial for users to quickly scan a page and find navigational elements or important information. The underline further emphasizes that the text is clickable, providing an additional visual cue. This is particularly helpful for users who may be colorblind or have difficult distinguishing colors. The change in color for visited links, typically to purple, helps users keep track of where they've been. This feature is invaluable for navigating large websites or conducting research, as it prevents users from inadvertently revisiting the same pages. Consider this HTML example. Without any custom CSS, most browsers will render these links in blue with an underline. After clicking on one of the links, its color will change to purple, providing immediate feedback to the user about their browsing history. While it's common for designers to modify these default styles to match a website's aesthetic, it's crucial to maintain the core principles behind them. If you choose to change the default styles, ensure that links are still clearly distinguishable from regular text. There's a visible difference between visited and unvisited links, and the colors chosen provide sufficient contrast with the background. For example, you might use a custom style like this. This maintains the blue and purple color scheme while replacing the underline with a bottom border for a more modern look. It's also important to consider the different states of links. In addition to the default and visited states, links typically have hover and active states. These states provide immediate feedback to users as they interact with links, enhancing the overall usability of the site. In conclusion, while it's possible to customize link styles, the principles behind the default styles should be maintained. They play a crucial role in creating a usable and accessible web experience, helping users navigate and interact with content effectively. Always prioritize clarity and user experience when designing link styles for your websites. How do you style the different link states? There are different states of a link, including link, visited, hover, focus, and active. These states are important for helping users recognize links and providing clear feedback after interactions, which improves both usability and accessibility. Styling these different link states is important for usability and accessibility, as it provides visual cues about the current state of the link. This helps users understand which links they have visited, which link they are interacting with, and what will happen when they click. For users with visual impairments or cognitive disabilities, these distinct styles can make navigation much easier and more intuitive. Additionally, clear link states enhance the overall user experience by providing immediate feedback on user interactions, reducing confusion and improving the site's navigability. These states can be styled using something called pseudo-classes in CSS. A pseudo-class is a keyword added to a selector that specifies a special state of the selected element. For example, hover can change a button's color when the user's pointer hovers over it, while visited can change the color of a link that has already been visited. Pseudo classes allow you to style elements based on their state or the user's interaction with them. Without the need for additional markup in your HTML. The syntax of a pseudo class looks something like this, where A is the selector and B is the pseudo class. To better understand how to style the different link states, let's take a look at some examples. The link pseudo class styles unvisited links, indicating that they are clickable. Here's an example of targeting an anchor element and using the link pseudo class. Here's what the result looks like rendered on the page. Visited styles links that have already been visited or clicked, helping users track which links they have clicked before. Here's an example usage of the visited pseudo class. This code will color the link to green when it's clicked. Here's what the result looks like rendered on the page. Hover changes the link style when the user hovers over it, providing a visual cue that the link is inactive. Here's an example usage of the hover pseudo class. This code will color the links to yellow when the mouse is hovered over it. Here's what the example looks like rendered on the page. Focus adds styles around the link when it is focused, such as when navigating with a keyboard or enhancing accessibility. Here's an example using the outline property to apply a solid orange outline when the link is focused. And here's what the example looks like rendered on the page. Active changes the link's styles while the link is being clicked, providing immediate feedback to the user that their action is being registered. Here's an example usage of the active pseudo class. Here's what the example looks like when rendered on the page. How do you work with background image size, repeat, position, and attachment? When working with background images in CSS, you have several properties at your disposal to control how these images are displayed. The main properties we'll focus on are background size, background repeat, background position, and background attachment. Let's first take a look at the background image property. The following CSS sets a cat background image for the body element. Here's what the result will look like in the browser. If you want to set the size for the background image, you can use the background size property. You can use contain to scale the image as large as possible without cropping or stretching. Here's an example with background size contain. We are setting the min height to 100 pixels so the background image is visible and the layout maintains a baseline height, ensuring that even with minimal content, the design appears balanced and visually appealing. Here's the result on screen. If we change the background size property to use the cover value, then the background image will scale to cover the entire body element while maintaining its aspect ratio. Here's what the result will look like displayed on the screen. In the previous examples, you probably noticed that the background image would continuously repeat. By default, background images repeat both horizontally and vertically to fill the entire element. However, you can control this behavior. You can use the background repeat property with the value set to no repeat. With the background size set to contain and the background repeat set to no repeat, the image will no longer repeat on the screen. Here's an image showing the result of the above code. If you wanted to repeat the background image horizontally, you can use the repeat X value for the background repeat property. Here's the result on screen. If you wanted to repeat the background vertically, you can use the repeat Y value for the background repeat property. And here's the result. To position a background image on the screen, you can use the background position property. The background position property allows you to set where in the element the background image appears. You can use keywords like top, bottom, left, right, and center, or specific pixel or percentage values. Here's an example using the center and top for the background position. This CSS code positions the background image at the center of the element horizontally and at the top vertically. Here's an image showing the result of the above code. Lastly, background attachment determines whether the background image scrolls with the content or remains fixed when the page is scrolled. The main values are scroll, default, where the background image scrolls with the content, and fixed, where the background image stays in the same position on the screen. And this is an example using the fixed value for the background attachment property. This CSS code sets the background image to remain fixed in place even when the page is scrolled. If you wanted to combine a few of the properties into one line, you can do that by using the shorthand background property. And then this example combines the background image, background position, and background attachment into a single line. By mastering these properties, you'll have great control over how background images are displayed in your web designs, allowing for more visually appealing and functional layouts. What is a background gradient and how does it work? A background gradient in CSS is a smooth transition between two or more colors that can be applied to the background of an element. Gradients allow you to create visually appealing backgrounds without needing images. There are two main types of gradients in CSS: linear gradients and radial gradients. A linear gradient transitions colors along a straight line. You can define the direction and the colors involved. Here's the basic syntax. In this example, we're using the background CSS property with the value of the linear gradient. The direction specifies the direction of the gradient, such as 45 degrees, a keyword such as to right, to bottom, or a side corner. Color stop specifies the colors and positions where the gradient transitions occur. To better understand how linear gradients work, let's take a look at the following example. This CSS creates a linear gradient that transitions from red on the left to yellow on the right. The gradient is applied to an element with a height of 40% of the viewport height. You'll learn more element example. This CSS creates a linear gradient that transitions from red on the left to yellow on the right. The gradient is applied to an element with a height of 40% of the viewport height. You'll learn more about VH units in a future lecture video. The to right direction means the gradient runs horizontally from left to right. And here's the result. Another type of gradient would be the radial gradient. A radial gradient transitions colors radiating from an origin, usually the center, outward in a circular or elliptical shape. Here's the basic syntax. On the syntax, the shape specifies the shape of the gradient, which could be circle or ellipse. The size determines the size of the gradient's ending shape, which could be closest side, closest corner, farthest side, farthest corner, contain, or cover. Position determines the position of the gradient's center, which could be specified using keywords such as center, top left, bottom right, or precise values such as 50%, 50%, 10 pixels, 20 pixels. Lastly, color stops are a list of colors that the gradient transitions through. Each color stop can optionally include a position value, percentage or length, indicating where the color should be placed. Here's an example. This CSS creates a circular radial gradient centered in the element. It starts with red at the center, transitions to yellow at 50% of the radius, and ends with green. The closest side keyword makes the gradient's ending shape fit the closest side of the element. The gradient is applied to an element with a height of 60% of the viewport height. And here's what it's going to look like. Understanding how to work with CSS gradients can significantly enhance your designs by providing visually appealing backgrounds without the need for images. With options like linear gradients for smooth transitions and radial gradients for circular effects, they offer both flexibility and creativity in web design. What are some accessibility considerations for backgrounds? In web design, backgrounds play a vital role in defining the overall look and feel of a web page. However, when designing with backgrounds, it's important to consider accessibility to ensure your content is usable and readable by all users, including those with visual impairments. One of the primary accessibility concerns related to backgrounds is ensuring that there is sufficient contrast between the background and the text. Without adequate contrast, users with visual impairments, including those with low vision or color blindness, may struggle to read the content on your page. Contrast refers to the difference in lightness or darkness between two colors. Sufficient contrast between the background color and the text color is essential for readability. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG, recommend a minimum contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1 for normal text and 3 to 1 for large text. For example, placing white text on a light gray background would result in poor contrast, making the text difficult to read. However, white text on a dark blue background would provide good contrast, enhancing readability for all users. Another consideration is avoiding placing text over busy or complex backgrounds, such as images or gradients with multiple colors. Busy backgrounds can make it hard to distinguish the text from the background, regardless of the contrast. If you must use a background image, it's a good idea to apply a semi-transparent overlay or a solid color behind the text to make it more readable. Here's an example of how you can do this. This code places a semi-transparent black overlay behind the text, improving its readability against the background image. And this is what it would look like. When designing backgrounds, avoid using color as the sole means of conveying information. For example, using just color to indicate an error or success message, such as red for error or green for success, can be problematic for users with color blindness. In addition to color, you should use symbols or text to convey information. For example, alongside a red error message, you could use an icon or bold text to make it clear that there's an error. Though less common, background audio or videos can also affect accessibility. Background music or auto-playing videos can be distracting for some users, particularly those with cognitive disabilities. If you include background audio, always provide a way for users to mute or pause the audio. By taking these accessibility considerations into account, you can create more inclusive designs that ensure your content is readable and usable by all users, regardless of their abilities. What are the different ways you can add borders around images? In CSS, there are several ways to add borders around images, each offering different styling options and levels of control. Let's explore some of the most common and versatile methods. The most straightforward way to add a border to an image is by using the border property. This property is a shorthand that allows you to set the width, style, and color of the border all at once. This CSS rule adds a 2-pixel wide solid red border around all image elements. You can adjust the width, style, such as dotted, dashed, or double, and color to suit your design needs. And here's what it looks like in the browser. If you need more control over individual sides of the border, you can use the specific border properties for each side. This allows you to create unique border styles for each side of the image. Here's what the result looks like in the browser. Another way to create a border effect is by using the outline property. While similar to border, outline doesn't affect the element's dimensions or layout. This creates a gold outline around the image without changing its size or position. If you want to create rounded corners on your border, you can use the border radius property in conjunction with border. This creates a black border with rounded corners like this. Remember, these techniques can be combined and customized to create unique border effects. The choice of method depends on your specific design requirements and the level of complexity you need.